If you guys get pinged twice for this video, I apologize. I did actually take it down and re-upload it. This is because there was some stuff that I wanted to change in it that I felt was worth redoing it. These builds, I'm going to show two different ones at the start, are the builds that you should follow. If you see other things throughout the rest of the video, it's just because I didn't feel like re-recording like 30 minutes of footage. So please just go off of what you see here at the start as what is used in this build. So let's get started, I guess. We are going to be using ATR in this build. Brisk walk is really the only thing that matters in here, and possibly better weapon weight. And you want to be looking for mainly the gold part of this roll if you can get it. We will be using smithereens for this build. You're looking for fire rate on the free core, and then the two yellow cores you can take whatever you want. Aim shot accuracy doesn't do anything, so you can just take whatever. And then you want multi-hit chance on the options, and magazine size and weapon change speed are nice QOL, but they're not needed. Only multi-hit chance will actually give you damage. For the mods, the only things that give you damage here are fire rate, shell up, and then both of the multi-hit chance. This is because their passive is affected by multi-hit chance. So the rest of this is yet again just QOL. If you feel like building the weapon, go for it. You may want to take expand weapon charge at the very least, and possibly better weapon weight, but I'm not going to tell you to build this weapon when it's very likely that they buff the transcendent weapons because they're a little bit lackluster at the moment, but we'll see. You're not really going to be using this, but I'm going to show it. You're looking for the the gold roll here on this, which is buffing the dot damage, and this is how I have it built. Feel free to take out fire priority for recycling genius or a larger magazine size, either or. But you're not going to be using this. That's why it's in the third slot, so it's not consuming ammo from your smithereens when you spawn in. This is the inversion reinforcement for the first build. This is the reactor. And then this is the set. She's obviously not a mana character, so feel free to farm a set that doesn't have mana on it, but this is the one that I have. And then this is the Arche Tuning for the first build. We're not using Shin Catalyst because we don't have a lot of non-attribute to proc it with, and we're also not going to be doing as many follow-up hits on most of the trash that we fight. And then this is the build here. You may see Potent Collector in some of the other footage in this build guide. Just ignore it. It's no longer in the build. We are using this one, which is Maximize Efficiency. It's also possible you see Maximize Conservation in the rest of the build. That was not something that we wanted to do. This is a new mod, and I forgot it existed, so I wanted to just update all this so that way people saw the right stuff at the start. This is the ancestor mod I'm using. You're going to want to look for a +3 -1 or a +2 -1 with shields preferably, and then either fusion or non-attribute boost or both. You don't need modifier. You're looking specifically for the boost ratios. Modifier is not terrible for her single target damage though, but that's up to you. I would not personally go for it, hence why you don't see it in this build right now. And then our trigger mod we're running is Golden Ensemble. That's because we have two different normal AoEs on her fourth and her first skill. I know that she has, well, I'll talk about it later. And then the second build is one that's going to be less focused on spamming. The reason that we're able to spam our fourth skill in this build is due to Brave Reset resetting our cooldowns whenever we kill something. So the second form of this, if you do not want to be doing that because it's just not working, or you're doing group content so you're not getting credit for the kills or something, I'm not sure, this is the second build. You can see we've swapped out our Bravery set for 2-piece Ascending Armory and 2-piece Shell Crusher. This is buffing our single target damage and resource generation. This is reducing the amount of resource cost that we use, and then we're getting massively more shields. The Arche Tuning switches slightly because we're no longer running a resource group module. We do have to pick up cooldown, so that's why cooldown was picked up here and range was dropped a bit right here. And then the inversion reinforcement changes slightly to pick up range here, so that way we're still able to hit the range cap, and because we are not able to get the cooldown due to the resource group missing from this one. The build itself, the only thing that has changed is we dropped Maximize Efficiency for shield resonance. This is, this is giving us decently more shields and damage, but it is making it so that way our fourth skill is now has a cooldown basically, and the reason that we don't need Maximize Efficiency is because of that. So during the time that this is cooling down and you can't press it again, you will have time to use your first skill to get resources back, so that's why we don't need the resource cost reduction anymore. So, all right, let me get into her abilities. I'm going to start with her passive. The main thing to note is that they're going to want you to have a shotgun equipped. You do not have to do this. However, there will be instances where you do want to do that. When you have a shotgun out, you're going to move faster, 30% faster. And when you shoot a shotgun, you're going to do additional skill power damage 50% of the time. That is a per shot instance. For Serena, who has the same thing, it is a per shell instance. When you have the Veil of Night buff, you will hit harder with that. You're just going to get an additional damage instance, and these instances are affected by multi-hit chance. So multi-hit chance will increase the amount of damage that this deals. It will not actually increase the trigger rate. It will just impact the amount of instances of damage that you deal with it. So Veil of the Night, I'm going to call it Veil of the Night because I can't stop myself from saying it, but Veil of Night is what you get from her third skill, which costs some of her custom resource, and it's just a buff that you get for 9 seconds. So you don't have to worry about this one too much, but I'm going to cover it anyway. When you shoot something with a shotgun that is either bleeding or has trace is applied by her other skills, and it will appear as a purple cloud above their head, you will get ammunition back. Also, when you fire a shotgun, you will get stacks of something called Domination, and then when you use a skill at 10 stacks, it will reload your shotgun. So you're going to get fire rate up to basically 15%, and then 50% reload time modifier for your shotgun at maximum stacks. So to unpack that really quick here, I'm going to just try and show you everything. I've applied bleed to the target. I'm going to attack. I get back rounds of my ammunition, and I'm building domination stacks. You'll notice when I use this, I have recovered my ammunition. And then I've also applied trace above their head, which is that purple circle. Those are the main things you're going to want to know. Let me get into her other abilities. The first one is Shadow Shot. This can store up to 2 charges, and you need to shoot with a shotgun 5 times to get a charge of it. The damage increases based on how close you are to the target and based off of your maximum shield, so as I've already said for that. The range on it is about 4 meters for the maximum distance of damage, which is 300%, and that's about the swing of a melee sword, so you do need to be pretty close to the target. When you hit anything, you're going to be getting back 3 of your custom resource, or 35 for big enemies, and that is per enemy that you hit. And then it will also apply trace to the target, which is that purple cloud yet again. Enemies that have trace on them, when you shoot them with a shotgun, will receive damage every half second. As long as you're shooting, basically it has a half-second cooldown. And it's 5,000 skill power damage, and that also scales with your shields. And then, of course, you'll be getting the rounds back from shooting them as well. You don't have to worry about this one too much, but it is there, and it is important, I suppose, for single target damage. So, show what this one looks like real quick. Just looks like that. Applies trace, and you can see that these 2 guys are also being hit. Her next skill is Raven Feather. When you put this out, it creates just like a little puddle, and it also puts bleed on stuff, so that can be helpful if you want to get rounds back. When you use it a second time, it's going to give you a buff that gives you 10% base skill power. It is actually the incorrect tooltip here. It is not skill power, it is base skill power. That is different, and it is less useful. So it is not essential to be using this, but you can use it to tow in enemies and recover your shields. So it will send out a little Raven dude. That's going to suck everybody in. It's going to put you up in the air and recover your shields and give you that buff. If you have this guy out and then you dodge, you'll notice it goes away. That is intentional. That is not a bug. Her third ability is Shadow Step. This will give you the Veil of Night buff. This is improving your multi-hit chance. I am unsure, as I haven't checked, and it's irrelevant to me whether or not the buffs on it apply to any weapon or just a shotgun. They only would matter for a shotgun because you would only ever be attacking things with a shotgun. So, but it will block 7 instances of damage over 9 seconds, whichever one comes first. And then it will also apply trace to everything else in the area. So that is that one. And then the last one, which is what we're actually playing around, and this is the very important skill, now that I've discussed everything else. This consumes a large amount of your custom resource to do some gunslinger stuff, and it does a lot of damage. It also increases in damage based on how close you are to the target. So when you are trying to do single target damage, you will want to be close to the target as it's going to double your damage. You can just hold down this ability by just pressing the input and holding it for the whole time, and it will execute it fast. This is unlike Blood and Iron Glay, who you have to repeatedly mash the input. So they'll save you some carpal tunnel on this one at least. It also reduces incoming damage, and then something to note is that if you get hit while you're using this, you will be knockback immune, but you're not immune to like all displacement effects. So, but it will cause you to consume more of your custom resource if you get hit while you're using it. So, because this, her third skill, blocks instances of damage, this will negate that effect at least 7 times while you're using it. So sometimes it can be a good idea to use this into this. So let me show you what that looks like. There you go. Because we are using that as our primary source of dealing damage, we are going to be hitting hard and hitting once. That's why we're not using Arche Chain Catalyst up here, and we're using non-attribute cohesion instead. Arche Chain Catalyst requires you to hit the target and then follow it up with more damage. And most of the time we are only going to be basically just doing this and sort of like spraying around the entire map like that. So we're mainly going for big hits that kill enemies on the first try. So those are her abilities. To talk about the trigger mod real quick, we are using Golden Ensemble. This is because we have access to 2 different normal AoE skills. This is her 4th and her 1st. For the build that's running this maximize efficiency one, we do have a little bit of extra range in it, so you only actually need 1 stack of this buff to reach the range cap, but you will be missing 7% damage if you're not using both. All you need to do to proc this is you just need to be using both of your normal AoEs, and then after that you don't have to worry about which one. So you can see I have 2 stacks now, and if I just use the first one over and over again, that's sufficient. But for the first build, it's not super important. You'll be at the range cap at the very least, just missing a tiny bit of damage if you're not doing or playing around it perfectly. I do know that they gave her her own mod. However, I have been unimpressed with this one. You don't really have the buff the whole time because you can't gain stacks of it while you actually have the buff, and it provides a kind of low skill power increase, and the shields are just additive with your other shields, so it only winds up giving you like 3,000 or 4,000 shields for like 8 seconds or something like that, and then you have to build it back up again. And since this build is revolved around just spamming a 4th skill, it's not very useful for us, so that's why it's not being used. Alright, let me go into how this build comes together. Basically, we're using Brave Reset, so that way when we kill stuff, we're resetting the cooldown on our 4th skill, which starts its cooldown as soon as you press it, so anything that dies during it is reducing its cooldown, and you can just spam it again when it comes off cooldown, or when you finish the cast, basically. We're using ATR to massively buff the damage of that, and for general mobbing, you will largely be able to just keep ATR out unless you specifically need to switch to the shotgun to either generate resource or proc Golden Ensemble or something along those lines. And then Smithereen is used in any scenarios where we're unable to get unable to maintain resource via just killing things. So that's what the Smithereens is for. And then this one largely does the most damage due to its fire rate is just so fast, and it's able to proc Trace more quickly and the trigger effects from her passive skill more quickly, so that's why we have it. I will show you what the rotation looks like on a large target, and then I will show you what it looks like on the smaller targets. So on a large target, by the way, the thing that is unique to Smithereens is it reloads all of its ammunition at once. You'll see that I went from 0 to 15 there really quick. All of the other shotguns do not do that, so that is just another nice benefit to Smithereens besides its massive fire rate, and the ability that it has that fire rate without needing to hit any other conditions. It just has it, so... So that is roughly what the single target looks like. The damage on the other one, the other build is obviously going to be much higher because we have way more damage in that other build, but we're not using that one for clearing because it does way less damage in its AoE clearing, just because you can't spam it as much. So I suppose you could do maybe a blend of the two if you wanted to, but I'm not going to go into that right now. And then let me show you what the AoE looks like. So for the most part, you just need to get your stack of Golden Ensemble. You'll be on ATR Prototype, and then you'll use this. And we'll be really dumb and forget to make the mobs not immune. There you go. You can see that we got all of our resources back, and we got our 4th skill back. So when you're actually clearing things in like a map or something like that, you will be able to just press that button over and over and over again, thanks to Bravery Set, the Maximize Efficiency, and her passive restoring all of our custom resources. So the sacrifice is, of course, our single target damage, but largely for trials and onslaught and general maps and stuff like that, like Legion Lab or whatever you're farming. Usually the ability to clear all the mobs faster is way more efficient than being able to kill the final boss a little bit faster. But if for some godforsaken reason you wanted to take this build into like attacking a Colossi, you would use the other one instead. I hope everybody has a nice day. And without further ado, here's some solo trials.
trial becomes harder with each repetition. Please, be careful. Simulation complete. Thank you for providing such valuable data. You willingly seek even harder trials. I look forward to watching your prize. Your contribution will allow me to research new technology This was the outcome I hoped for. Let's raise the difficulty a little this time. Simulation. I will make good use of the data you provided.